Hello all, welcome to another video. So today we've got more visual K content. I wanted to draw more VK stuff, but I didn't want to do yet another portrait study, so I decided to get fanciful. So today we have Arimura Ryutaro, the vocalist from Plastic Tree, riding a black cat in the night sky with some jellyfish. Plastic Tree is my favorite band and has been since I was in university years ago. They're sort of 90s Brit rock inspired, or they used to be, but they've been around for 25 years now, so have definitely grown and done some different stuff over this time. They've actually got a new single coming out on September 4th, yay! So, why am I drawing this? Well, Ryutaro has a very distinctive kind of style, and he's certainly the easiest for me to draw and make recognizable in an illustrative style. I've probably stared at his photos way too much. The main dilemma I had with this piece was that so many elements were supposed to be black. Black hair, black skirt, black sandals, black cat, black guitar, although with some gold accents. On top of that, I don't use black in watercolors. I don't even have any on my palette. I also wanted the sky to be dark, but not black, in order to be able to make the jellyfish kind of pop and make the moon really bright by contrast. So the compromise is using Payne's Grey, which is a dark bluish grey for most of the elements, but for the sky I went in with straight indigo blue, sort of blurring the night sky deep sea line again. For the moon, I used a very diluted quinacridone gold just to outline the elements overlapping it. By the way, all the paints I'm using here are by Holbein, and so will the colored pencils I will be using afterwards. All the supplies will be listed in the description down below in case you're curious. I sort of procrastinated starting the bigger elements because I wanted to be more confident in how I was going to do them. That cat is fairly big after all, and the skirt has pleats and it's all supposed to be all sort of black. So I'm just doing some isolated details here and there and trying to be more efficient in what I can paint without running the risk of the colors running into each other. And of course then I had to put my hand in some fresh paint and drag some dark paint over the white paper. Yay! This painting was full of small details, or rather smaller details than I usually paint. My hands are not the steadiest and I generally enjoy large flat shapes and silhouettes, so this was a bit more fiddly than I'm used to. I'm using the very tip of my silver black velvet size 8 round to paint around the elements on the guitar. Thinking back, it seems that I forgot to draw the volume knobs on it, but at least it's still recognizable for what it's supposed to be. It's a bit weird because I did use a reference for it. I just didn't look at it when I was painting after the sketch, so that's possibly why. At this point, all the details I'm painting are using straight up Payne's Grey. I was worried a bit about it clashing with the indigo because they are so close in value, but I think it worked out in general because if you did desaturate the image to get the pure values, it's still what I intended. I did make a couple of swatches to make sure that the quin gold would match as well. And finally, starting on the cat. I decided to just go with large flat washes at first and leave white space for lines and rim lighting from the moon. Now, about the process of making this piece up to this point. I had some cat sketches in my sketchbook and I was trying to figure out how to draw them. I posted that spread on my Patreon, by the way. You can find the link to it in the description below. Anyway, then on the next spread I was doodling Ryutaro, trying to figure out if I was indeed able to draw him as an illustration and not in a realistic style. Then my brain sort of remembered that he has a cat and it sort of connected things randomly together. And I sketched this image roughly on a page. It was also supposed to have a rainbow of various shades of blacks on it as well, but it didn't fit the composition that I wanted, so I had to scrap that idea. The next step was to fully flesh out this concept, and I did it in Procreate on my iPad. I made a new canvas size at print resolution, so 300 dpi, the size of my watercolor paper, which is 24 by 32 centimeters, and sketched the whole image roughly. Incidentally, cat faces are really hard to draw. Anyway, after the rough sketch was done and I had decided on the position of all the elements, I did a clean sketch on a new layer in black over that to finalize the details. Then I exported it and took the file to my local Family Mart, a convenience store, to print it out on B4 sized paper because that's only just a little bit larger than the target size. Then I took that printout home and used a light box that I actually bought just for this painting because before that I used to sketch directly on the paper. With this light box, I traced the sketch onto watercolor paper to get what you saw at the beginning of the video. It's actually better to do it that way because if you sketch directly on the watercolor paper and then you erase, then the eraser can damage the surface of the paper and make colors go on unevenly. So I expect to use this workflow a lot more from now on. Back to what I'm doing, painting the skin. I'm using raw sienna for that. I used to use yellow ochre as a base for light skin colors, but it's pretty opaque and I wanted my current palette to have the most transparent colors that I could find in the range, so I switched it out. I'm pretty happy with that swap. So I use a base of raw sienna, then add some red to the mix to warm up higher blood flow areas such as the cheeks, nose, ears, fingertips, etc. Then I use desaturated blues and purples to add shadows, usually. The face was super hard to paint because it's so tiny. He also has a smoky eye makeup thing going on, and I tried doing that with the Payne's Grey, but it was too small an area for me, so I decided to leave it and do it later with colored pencils. And here I added super tiny dots for the black nail polish, and I find that kind of cute. So after the main parts were done, I went in with my Kuretake Starry colors, which are shimmery metallic paints, to paint the earrings and the ornaments on the guitar. Then it was time to go in with the colored pencils. For some reason, the Holbein pencils come with a slightly squared off tip, so I made sure to sharpen them to be able to do the tiny details. I used mostly the darkest cool grey pencil, as well as the regular black to add a bit of texture and deepen the shading in the darker bits, as well as solve the smoky eye situation. I'm still new to using colored pencils as a support medium for watercolors, so I'm pretty conservative overall as to how I use it and what colors. I did use it to add more detail to the Jellyfish, as well as using a couple of the blues from the pastel color pencil layer for that. I think in the end what was supposed to be a mostly black image is ending up pretty colorful after all. Between the yellowish moon and the bluish jellyfish, the cat's green eyes and red color, we have a pretty wide variety of hues, and I think that's kind of amusing. The white pencil was invaluable in giving the illusion of the guitar strings. The Holbein pencils are wax and oil based, which makes them slightly opaque, so the white showed up on the darker background and I didn't have to wobble my way through by making lines with white gouache, which would have been, well, wobbly and also would have stood out way too much. Here we have some semi-transparent white, which is perfect. After strengthening the darks with some touches of black pencil, it was time to use the white gouache to add all the jellyfish tentacles and small highlights that I hadn't preserved. I used a rigger or script liner brush, also a silver black velvet in size 1. It's the first time I'm actually using this type of brush, and it was really nice. The longer hairs actually act a little like a buffer or a shock absorber, making your lines more steady. And after all that, we're done! Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, do check out Plastic Tree. I think you can find some of their music on YouTube, especially the older stuff. They're my favorite. So please thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe and share, and check out my social media links in the description below, as well as my Patreon. Thanks again, you're the best. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!